What started as a Saturday morning coffee date turned into a podcast where we chat about things like faith, family, finances, and so much more.
In a world that is encouraging you to live your truth and to follow your heart, we want to encourage you to live devoted to the truth.
The Bible has a lot to say about how to live a victorious Christian life, and we want to share practical insight in how to apply those truths to your life as we endeavor to apply them to our own lives as well.
If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and share these episodes with your friends so that you can help them live this devoted life too. Welcome to another episode of This Devoted Life podcast. We are so excited because we have Sam Smith on the podcast today. Though you may better know him as S.D. Smith, the writer of the Green Ember series. So what started as stories he told his 4 children when they were little turned into a beloved children's series that inspired children and adults with soul-shaping, memory-making, and darkness-shaking adventures. With over 4 million copies, with over 1 million copies sold, this series of stories are packed with virtue and imagination that help shape children into children of light, piercing the darkness around them. He is always working on his next adventure, and we'll be talking about an upcoming or a Kickstarter campaign that he has going right now, which is his future project. But I'm sure he would tell you one of his greatest and best adventures has been marrying his wife and raising his 2 boys and 2 girls. So we want to say welcome to Sam. Hi.
Well, hello. I was so excited about that jump in sales that happened.
Yeah, we actually just placed a 3 million copy order. So
There
yes.
you go.
That means a lot. That means a lot. So instead of the 10 minutes I promised, let's go ahead and do the full 30. I mean,
All right.
thank you.
Yes, please.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Can you just kind of tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself, maybe some of your hobbies, things you enjoy, and who you are?
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you guys. My name's Sam, and I'm married to Gina, and we have 4 kids. We live in southern West Virginia, a rural part of West Virginia, which is to say a part of West Virginia. And we're we love our community, and we're in involved with our church and our community in a strong way. And I'm a missionary kid, so I moved from Huntington, West Virginia area to Beckley, West Virginia area via South Africa. So that's kind of, we've got a sort of the usual
corner. Yeah.
How long were you in South Africa for?
So kind of interesting. I was there basically my teenage years.
Okay.
I share this sometimes, but I was 12 when we left, and I turned 13, my first birthday in South Africa. When I went there, Nelson Mandela was in prison, and I turned 13 the day he was released from prison in South Africa. And then when we left, he was the president of the country. So just an interesting, fascinating time to be there in 89. And so was there sort of during the 90s. But yeah, missionary kid, and my dad's been in ministry, and I love what you were saying. Just the family has been the big adventure, and I love to talk about that some. But I just keep thinking about how so many people, and understandably, view kids and family, domestic obligations as sort of an obstacle to. I know a lot of creative people are like, oh, if I didn't have to do the laundry, then I could write, the great American novel or whatever. And I actually sympathize with that. I know that there's a real struggle there for
Sure.
but that has not been the obstacle for me. That's been the way.
Yeah.
The thing
that a little Ryan Holiday.
That's, And I don't know if did he come up with that? I thought that was an older kind of a thing.
It's much older, but he did write a book that's called The Obstacle Is the Way. So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
I try not to give him any credit, do more credit.
Right. Yeah. I honestly love what you're saying. Yeah, it's very true.
It's and so that whole family, and even apart from sort of like, oh, that meant that I was successful because the story that I told, led to that has happened. That's part of the story. But I actually think that the things that we long for as artists, as human beings, we want sort of to have a long-lasting impact. We want to have connections. We want what we put our energy into to matter in significant ways, and like that's what you get at home. Like that's what you get when you pour into kids and to your family.
Absolutely.
Like, and I'm pretty convinced. I'm not sure I'll ever make anything, like create anything, write anything that will have more of an impact in the world than the 4 human beings that Gene and I are raising. I just think that's way more potent. I mean, they're going to multiply, Lord willing, and that'll be 200, 300 thousands of people soon. And So I'll have
Yeah.
have a chance to impact the world, all the people they touch. And I don't think any of my books, even the ones that sell, a whole lot or reach a big thing, I just don't think any of them will have that impact. So I just,
Mhm.
you're right. I loved your intro because I was like, that's exactly my heart.
That's the kingdom impact right there.
Yeah.
And there's a book,
Mhm.
I think it's To the 10th Generation, and it talks about how that multiplying out is your family will become thousands and millions of people someday. And the seeds that you're planting for the kingdom right now are just going to continue to multiply. And so that really is, I mean, it's obviously your heart and it's the heart of our ministry too, is just to help families build those future or that heavenly kingdom. So
Yeah, I believe that. I
yeah.
once gave a talk, and the sort of the refrain in it was, "The kingdom of God is our aim and heart." No,
Mm.
the kingdom of God is our family's heart, the end and aim of all our art. And I was
Wow.
Oh,
trying to
I
just
love
think
that.
of something that was, like, meaningful or that would catch in someone's mind. It was sort of
Yeah.
like it was a creative conference, so I was trying to sort of say that
Mhm.
message of, like, they're not the obstacle, they're not in the way, they're here.
Yeah.
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 This is your calling. This is, and
Mhm.
it's and all the things you long for as an artist to, there's so much of that there. And I know it's mundane, and part of the challenge is it's not popular, it's not fame.
No.
So it
Right.
doesn't
Yep.
get you, when you wipe the 5,000th diaper, or
Exactly.
change the diaper, I guess, and wipe the bottom and clean the room, whatever. And it's so modest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's so unseen, but there's so much depth and rich. And honestly, even if you're thinking about it being a creative, sort of a creative calling, like the, there is no, I don't know, there's no way to get to where you can share meaningful, good, generous work without suffering, I think.
Mhm.
Yep.
Without, like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
if someone offers you the long cut or the shortcut, take the long cut. The long cut is where you
Mhm.
become the kind of person that can serve people in a
Yeah.
Mhm.
completely
Yeah.
different way. So yeah, I'm for the family. I'm just coming out. I'm coming out, now, making a bold statement. I think the families are great.
No, I love that.
Absolutely.
I remember years ago, a friend of mine, and you being a missionary kid, she told me that she always felt like God was calling her to the mission field. And she actually felt like once she got pregnant and had a baby, that she wasn't able to fulfill that calling. And I
Mm,
remember looking at her and saying, well, you're fulfilling it right now within your home because God
Mhm.
has given you your mission field literally within your home
yeah.
right now. And I didn't realize how much of an impact that made on her until years later. She was like, you have no idea how much that changed, like the mindset that I had going into the day to day of just,
Mm.
this is what God has called me to right now in this season.
Mhm.
And so
It's
I love
beautiful. And
that.
she had 37 children, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it started in church, and it was like, wow, we've got. No, I love it.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
a great way to build the kingdom. It's just
Yeah.
have more babies, and
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, you can promote the things that in your household, in your children, you can promote them in obviously they're their own individuals. They're going to be the people they're going to be and, hopefully follow the Lord and his calling in their life and stay in his will. But yeah, we absolutely believe that the healing of America, the healing of our world, while it's definitely through the gospel, it is also through the home, and it's honestly the main reason why we even do this podcast. So,
Mhm. Absolutely.
yeah, it's kind of the heart of her ministry.
yeah, it's
Yes.
powerful. And yeah, moms are. I mean, yeah, I love the. I love the kind of women, I'm sure, that are listening to this.
Yeah.
They're like my wife. They're like serious
Mhm.
women who care and love the Lord,
Mhm.
and have challenges like everybody else, maybe too
Yeah.
over anxious or fearful about this or worried about that, but they're trying.
Yep.
They're trying. They're like they're going for it, and
Yeah.
I love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that you have said, that your family is like your lasting legacy, but obviously, like your books are going to leave an impact on other people. Who are some authors that you would say made an impact on you as a kid that has kind of shaped you into the person that you become?
Hmm. For sure. I mean, massive. I mean, reading is magic. I mean, it's this miraculous thing that you can. I have been discipled by C.S. Lewis, and
Mhm.
in my life, that's just isn't that so
Absolutely.
cool? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
technology. Again, thinking about sort of like, playing with in a technological world, which maybe we'll get onto, but like even
Yeah.
even your son Dawson doing like
Mhm.
RC cars, that's like playing with the technology, but there's something
Yeah.
really cool about it. It's like very connected
Mhm.
to this. And the technology of the printing press, the technology of books has been so, and there were people, I was just reading Thomas Jefferson the other day, who's writing about warning people about novels, just like the novels are the worst thing in the world. They're so horrible. And you can kind of find that about a lot of things. When the bicycle came out, just people absolutely flipped out about
right.
horrible. And maybe they were right. I don't know. Bicycle's really scary, but it's just the technology of like that I have the opportunity to read, that I can read C.S. Lewis, I can read George MacDonald, I can read G.K. Chesterton, I can read Jane Austen, and these people all have had a massive influence on me. And there's some more spiritually, but actually I would say that there's never been a book that has impacted me more profoundly in a spiritual way than The Lord of the Rings. And I was not a big reader as a kid. I came a little bit late into it, so I was in my teens before I was reading a lot. But that book is so profoundly good. And actually, you think about Lewis's experience himself, that he found a book he didn't even know about it. It was called Fantastes. And he read this book. He was a devout atheist being discipled by an extremely devout atheist.
Right. Yeah.
The great Knock, Kirkpatrick. And he had no time for it. And it was something he was rejecting actively. But he read this book, Fantastes, and he said that it had like the stench, the aroma of holiness. And he encountered that through fiction. And I would just say that experience, and that had unbelievably compounding, profound impact of goodness when you think about what he went on to create. So this lineage, going back, so profound and so beautiful. And Tolkien, just, The Lord of the Rings, I loved the Bible. I read the Bible more than anything as a teenager. I read constantly. And what happened when I read the Lord of the Rings is that helped me to love what the Bible put forth as beautiful. So I saw it. It was like I could see it. And it was not an allegory. It's not heavy-handed. It's not sort of like, hey, this means this. It wasn't like trying to dominate me. It was an invitation. It was beautiful, a good story. It was such profound, and it has been. I've read it probably 8 or 10 times. And it just, every time, there's so much goodness and beauty that highlights the truth. That these, Brian Brown said that truth and beauty will live together or die apart. And I just think there's so much reality that I think we forget that God made it all, the beauty, the goodness, and the truth.
Absolutely.
It's all his stuff. So just profound. So Tolkien, Lewis for sure, which is like a cliche answer, but I don't care because it's so
it's the truth. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Chesterton as well. And I do love Jane Austen a whole lot. So, and I would say Louisa May Alcott and Alan Paton and P.G. Wodehouse, as far as just like enjoyment for reading, that kind of thing. That's probably a little bit of the humor sort of side, but there's I could go on and on.
Yeah.
Well, I laughed when I saw that, I think in a bio that you had online, that you had Little Women written down as one of the books that you loved as a child. And I did not read it until last year. It was the first time I read it. And then we happened to be at a work conference, and I realized that the Louisa May Alcott house was like 10 minutes away. And I said, we need to go and see. So we were able to go and just walk in her footsteps, like where she was writing, and just the fact that she used both her right and left hand to write so that she didn't have to stop writing. She could just swap hands when a hand got tired. And I was like, that is so neat to actually see what inspired her and where she was sitting when she started to write that. And
you could see the little girl come out in her so much. She was just like,
I was giddy.
Yes, exactly. It was amazing.
I want to go to that. I would love to go. So that was an important one for me because that's the first time I thought about being an author. I wasn't reading at the time, but I had a teacher who read that book to us in first grade. And my mother read the Chronicles of Narnia. This teacher, Miss Geiner, she read Little Women. And I remember hearing about Joe being a writer. And I remember thinking like, you can sort of like, you can do that. Like, that's really cool. And then hearing from her that was sort of, that she was sort of a stand-in for Louisa herself. And I was just inspired. And for some reason I thought, authors were really far away. They were in England or there was something. And this was like, this is a person there's a big family. Like
human.
And she's an American and she's close and they're not wealthy. And I just kind of thought, well, that's like my family. So so it just got in my head like, that's a really cool vocation. Maybe that's
super cool.
Well, and I love that, like when a book is well written, it's timeless. So as a kid, I watched the movie and I definitely related with Joe when I was little, but reading it this time around, I was like, I was relating to Marmee now. And I just was like, I want to have my motherhood like
Mm.
reflect this a little bit. And there were little bits and pieces of it that I was able to take. And I just was like, this is such a good, deep, rich, beautiful writing. And I mean, it can inspire all areas of your life. And so,
100%. And I'd love to I wouldn't mind being like the dad in the book, but
yeah.
less excited about being like the real dad the book was,
Yeah,
was based on.
exactly.
Yes.
I would want to do a little
Yeah,
better job. I'm hoping
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
that's a whole
I
another
think,
subject there.
Yeah.
yeah.
We won't need to touch that one.
Yeah. Not to get too far into the weeds on what you just said, but as you were saying it, you relating to different characters,
Mhm.
at different points in your life. I mean, it's so symbolic to life. I think whether we're going to church, literally anything that we're doing in the season of life, we can get different things out of it. I mean, look at the living word of God, in the Bible. And as a child, hearing all of the biblical stories and things like that and how they talk to you. But then, as an adult, there's so much deeper meaning there. And
Mhm.
when you said it, for some reason, my mind started thinking of all the different aspects in lenses in life that
Mhm.
we use, and we need it at that moment, and it can be so impactful. So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
my
and
little blurb.
we're
Sorry.
Charlotte Mason homeschoolers, so we talk about
Yeah,
a lot about, like, living books,
yeah,
and, I mean,
Mhm.
what we're talking about right now is that. I mean, obviously, the Bible is the ultimate living book, but there
yeah.
are ideas that
Yeah.
reflect the truth that God has given
Mm.
us in His Word through story, and it really is very impactful. So
So I totally resonate with that. I was talking to somebody yesterday about, like, it's funny how people give new Christians the book of John, or someone that they're thinking about, like, and I
Mhm.
think that's cool. It's like, it's amazing though. That's such a deeply profound, it's so philosophical, it's so poetic, it's so beautiful. It's like, oh, that's the thing you're introducing. It's really wild, but a lot of,
Right.
it's great too, because you
Yeah.
Yeah.
encounter Jesus in it, and you can just
Yeah.
Mhm.
encounter Jesus with whatever baggage, whatever history you have, and it's so compelling. You either want to, reject him or worship him. And but it is different. It's funny that, 50 years later or 20 years later, you might read the same thing, having, spent time in the Pentateuch, and then you're
Yes.
reading John.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah.
completely different you're just, oh my goodness, this is Genesis again and again. It's just Genesis
Right.
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
And I love that, that, and I think that's part of sort of, yeah, I mean, a person who reads Genesis or all the Pentateuch, and reads Ecclesiastes, the wisdom literature, and reads John,
Mhm.
there's, I mean, there's depth there, so
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. Yeah.
deeply profound, same thing, same word, but
Mhm.
the profundity of that is so
Mhm.
Yeah.
powerful, and it's so literary, it's so beautiful and literary, and so much of Scripture there's so much music and songs and stuff,
Mhm.
and I love the phrase that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
Yep.
it's that you just see the rhyming all through the Gospels,
Mhm.
just everywhere. But it's in life too. It's just
Yep.
there's such a profound. I mean, Lewis said that the intellect is the organ of truth, and that the imagination is the organ of meaning. And I'm such an
Mhm.
advocate for Christians recapturing a capacity for imagination.
Mm.
I think we're really impoverished when we strictly look at information and think that
Mhm.
that's going to be, if have the correct information, that is. Why is the Scripture so full of stories? Why are even the
Yes.
commands in Scripture so rooted in narrative, so
Mhm.
rooted in a story? I am the God who brought you out of Egypt. That's
Yep.
the context for the Ten Commandments. I am Christ has died, buried, raised, seen. That's the context for all the commands of the New Testament. So it's
Yeah.
not so
Mhm.
much about, like, if we just say, like, this, oh, but take this information in, assent to this information
Just
mentally,
download
and
this. Yeah.
yeah, we're not brains on a stick. We're
Right.
Right.
embodied human beings, and so what we do with our bodies matters, and our imagination is such a profound capacity. That's part of my mission with is I just want I want to enliven, I want to enrich the imagination of families and kids, and I want it to
Mhm.
be rooted in that capital R reality
Yeah.
Mhm.
that is the truth. The way, I don't want to lie to children about the way God made the world. I feel like it's a big stewardship, but just the
Mhm.
imagination is so profound and so powerful, and I think you just see it in Scripture. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
just James, when you just got me going, you're thinking about
Yeah. No,
how
I
No,
love
God's
that's
it.
great.
so alive. It's just so, and it's not that the information changes or something in it.
Mhm.
But it's truth. But it is so. It's just, it hits you. It can hit you as
Mhm.
a scholar. It can hit you as a poet. It can hit you as
Yep.
a child.
Yep.
Maybe most, best
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
child, according to the Lord. And so
Yep.
it's just, yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. So what are your take or what is your take on modern children's literature then? Because I mean, there's a lot of books that have been put out in modern times. And sometimes I kind of question because it feels like the heroes of the story are no longer heroes and the villains are no longer villains. And it's what is your take on the modern children's literature that's coming out? And I don't equate your books to that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
no,
mean,
I mean, that's literally kind of what you're I just think saying that in his books, the
Yeah.
villain is the villain,
Yes.
and yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
I
what's your
do.
take on that?
I think that a lot of modern books are timely. They are rooted in a time, and they are very much like about a topic or something. And honestly, too, unfortunately, I think you get this sort of from both sides on politics. They become basically like propaganda. They're a
Yeah.
little bit
yes,
rooted in a
absolutely,
modern argument among adults, and it's like trying to sort of like, well, I think there's a lot been a reaction to, oh, these people are telling all these lies and pushing an agenda. So you know how we'll counter that? We'll do children's books that push the opposite agenda, and
right,
and there's sort of like the kids kind of get lost in this as far as
yeah,
like what is good for a child. And I do
Mhm.
think there are some differences between a lot of the timeless classics, and it's a little bit of a bias because the books that survive, you know, in Anne of Green Gables and Ivanhoe,
Mhm.
a Tale of Two Cities, or whatever, you know, the Count of Monte Cristo, the
yeah,
reason we have them is because they were the best, you know, and so
Yeah.
there's been this filtering over time, which is a good safety, or not safety, but like a good device.
yeah,
Lewis talked about that, about reading 3 old books. For every one
Mhm.
you read from this century, read from the
mhm,
old. Let the fresh breeze of the centuries blow through your imagination. And I think that's really good wisdom. But I think part of the reason for that is because you don't know. I mean, in our own culture, I think some of the challenges about it is a lot of the children's literature is this sort of whole universe spiraling into me, as in I am the
Mhm.
center. And so what I just say about myself, how I define myself, all that, it's like it's this very centered. And I think the best literature makes a child feel small in a good way, as in I'm a part of
yeah,
something. I'm small in this big
Mhm.
mhm,
universe. And that's like a
right,
really sweet thing. And actually it's a cool cause for peril. You know, why you see most
yeah,
children's books end up with like the parents get disconnected at some point. And
Mhm.
I don't think that's always like oh, we're trying to divide. It's sometimes it's just like that makes you scared.
yeah,
Mhm.
It makes for action and peril. It's I see it in Narnia, and you certainly see it in Lord of the Rings. The hobbits are basically children, and
mhm,
it's a so the best books I think are timeless, and they have
Mhm.
timeless values, and they have a sort of a humility in regards to the universe and to God, and the sort of meaning, you know, kind of goes out. It doesn't go spiraling in. It
Mhm.
locates a person in this more humble way, and I think that's why so much of old literature is more refreshing. I think it's more
Mhm.
rooted in reality often, and honestly, a lot of it is rooted in a Christian worldview in a really profound
it
way.
is,
You're
yeah,
talking about even Dickens. I do like, and I've totally resonate with what you're saying. A lot of modern stories are like the villain's just misunderstood, or they just needed a hug, or that kind of thing. And I think that is pretty tedious and like overplayed. I do,
Mhm.
mhm,
I do think that, you know, if you believe the gospel, then there's a way back, and it's like
Mhm.
there is in my own stories, I like that there's clarity, as in sort of there are types of animals or whatever that are just evil, and that's really
Mhm.
mhm,
simple, and there's just to be fought and opposed.
sure, yeah,
Mhm.
And but the rabbits aren't just good, and
Right.
so they are morally complex, so they can go
Mhm.
along with the way of death or the way of life. So they're stand-ins for us. They're people, really. And so I like moral complexity, as in that is the reality of the world. Like we
Mhm.
can every day, different moments, and the idea that we're going to like, oh, I see virtue and now I shall be virtuous. It's like it's not as simple as that. Like we struggle with sin and we fail, and what we need is models of repentance and models
Mhm.
of people choosing in suffering for maybe the way, following the way of life. And so I think in my books, I want there to be moral complexity. I want
Mhm.
a bad character to be able to turn back. I want
mhm,
I want them to sometimes to just go on, choose the bad way, and maybe they
sure,
Mhm.
prosper for a while. Because I mean, read the Bible; it's like it happens for a long time, and it's
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
frustrating to some psalmists. And so I want there to be moral complexity. So I
Mhm.
respect that, but I don't like the reduction of all stories to misunderstandings. I think
mhm,
I think that is a big problem with a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
modern literature. So I
Yeah.
sympathize with your concerns there for sure. And I like the moral clarity of the moral universe of a lot of
Yeah.
classic literature.
I had once heard Andrew Pudewa was speaking, and he talked about just how in children's literature, when they can see evil and they can see good, it helps them to learn to differentiate between it. It's kind of like, gaining wisdom and being able to identify what is right and what is wrong. And obviously, the characters are morally complex, but they're able to see what is right through these stories and are then able to, hopefully, when they're applying it to their own life and they come to a situation that may be similar or something happens and they're like, okay, I can choose one of these paths because I've seen this in stories and I want to choose to do what is right.
Well, that's like the romance of goodness. Like I think that's a big thing that's missing too from a lot of literature. Is that there's no there. Simone Weil has this wonderful quotation, which I can never get exactly right, but basically says that imaginary evil is like fun and glorious and exciting and everything, and real and imaginary good is boring and but real evil is so bad, so
Yeah,
dark,
absolutely.
depressing, and it's just and real good is life-giving and new
It
and
is.
precious, and so it's
Yeah.
the part of what I feel like my mission is I want to sort of introduce the sort of the romance, the adventure of goodness, of
Mhm.
beauty, of truth, of reality, and like say no. When the people that say that the what God says is a lie, or that it's a shackle, that it's a chains or something. No, it's a key. It's not a cage, and that's a part of my heart is like to sort of that to be, and I don't do that in like I'm going to teach the kids. I won't know.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so telling the truth is right, and telling lies. So if I'll write a story where someone tells a lie and then they get in trouble and bad things. I don't want to reduce. I want to tell real, adventures and
Yes.
stories, not just moralistic tracks. I want to
Yeah.
have adventure. I want to respect the craft but I want to tell the truth the whole time. I
Yeah.
never want to lie. I must not tell lies. And so, yeah, if you walk away, I hope my prayer is, and the Lord's answered this prayer by the testimony of many, many people. And I just give him
Yeah.
glory for that, is that kids walk away from reading Green Ember, from that world, and they are changed in good ways.
Yeah.
And they have an encounter with reality with a capital
Mhm.
R, and it may not, there's not, someone doesn't get saved and someone doesn't start, oh, now I'll go to church, I'll
Yeah.
read my Bible. That doesn't generally work, but they will be changed, and they'll have an encounter with truth, with beauty and
Mhm.
goodness. I pray, and God's answered that prayer, and I give
Absolutely.
him glory for that.
Yeah, I know that before starting this podcast, you had mentioned that you've kind of been wrestling with this topic of advocate versus accuser.
Mm.
And I want to let you kind of talk on that. But there was a quote in one of your books that I wanted to read that I think kind of ties into what we've been talking about in that topic. I'm going to read it for a second. It says, all of life is a battle against fear. We fight it on one front and it sneaks around to our flank. He paused, looked kindly at her. Yes, Father, I understand. And he said, I regret many things I have done, but most of all, I regret those moments when I said to fear, you are my master.
Mm.
And I just was like, that is so good, because so often kids deal with these fears and they don't know how to conquer them. And as I was listening to you talk, I thought you are being an advocate for children through your writing and helping point them towards Christ. And so I would love to hear just kind of your thoughts on this, being an advocate versus being an accuser, because obviously our advocate is Christ and the accuser is the devil. And so often, like we're talking about this tug and war between good and evil.
Mm.
And we have this accuser who is always whispering lies into our ear. And God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And so we need to learn to be discerning between what voice are we listening to? Is it our advocate or is it our accuser? And what role are we as parents playing into our children's life?
Mm. Yeah. Well, and I'll just say that you quoted from the Green Ember, that part
Mhm.
that's not because I'm so smart, I want to teach people this. It's because that's
Yeah.
my problem. Like
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
my
Yeah.
like that's me. I have said
Mhm.
that. I've said yes to fear, and I've given in. That's part of the internal struggle of one of the main characters, Heather, which I really relate to, is someone who's anxious, someone who struggles with that, and so that's not something that's like, oh, that's used to be, but back before I was a super Christian.
Sure. Yeah.
That I'm growing.
Mhm.
I'm growing in grace. God's giving me a
Absolutely.
lot of blessings, a lot of victory, but it's something I struggle with, and
Mhm.
so to say, I want to, and yeah, so that's really a core idea of the Green Ember series, is this sort of like bravery. And
Mhm.
it's not so much, and that's not, as everybody knows, it's not the absence of fear. It's
Right.
actually required. The presence of fear is
Mhm.
required. And
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
it's not so much, if you do all the right things, you will not be
Mhm.
afraid,
Right.
or it's, when I am afraid, I will trust in you. And
Yeah.
it's so it's not the sort of the absence of challenges, or the absence of
Mhm.
temptation, or even the absence of, weakness. It's not the absence of, will I ever get sick and die? You will. Like, you will
Mhm.
die. You will
Yeah.
weaken and die, unless it
Mhm.
happens really quick. Like, so there's this. I don't like the sort of the prosperity heresy of, like, if you just do the right things, everything
Mhm.
will work out. Or whatever. I want to deal with the reality of suffering. And so much of the
Mhm.
scripture is about suffering, and how to equip that. And I think that the books have really resonated with people who have, gone through childhood cancer
Mhm.
or loss or this kind of thing, because they deal with suffering in an honest way,
Mhm.
and I hope a biblical way. And yeah, and I think the advocate thing, that's, I I just think that so many people who care a lot about the truth have a disposition of being a critic, which can be very closely
Mhm.
related to being an accuser. And
Yeah,
so
so true.
the view, I think about Christ healing the man with the withered hand. And there's a man with a withered hand. It's the Sabbath, and he's in front of the synagogue, and he's looking, and the Pharisees, what are they doing? They are looking at him to see how they can accuse him. That's a big deal. I mean, diabolus, the devil, that is what his name is. It is the accuser, one who throws stones. That's his thing. So these religious leaders are sitting around watching him. And what are they watching him? To see if he will heal a guy with a withered hand. In an agrarian culture, this is a man who is, it's not like he can get a tech job or something. Like, this is how you work, so you're talking about the livelihood, you're talking about the life of
Mhm.
this man and his family, whatever, and their focus is, let me see if he breaks this rule.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so they're immediate. That's their intention. So, and Jesus appeals to them. Is it
Mhm.
right on the Sabbath to do good or to do bad? Like,
Mhm.
is it better to do death or life on the Sabbath? He's
Mhm.
kind of like, and their answer is not, oh, their answer is silence, because all they're doing is watching him. And I
Yeah.
just
Yes.
think, like, if that, and he heals the man. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful story. I love it so much. Stretch out your hand, and he stretches out this hand, and
Mhm.
it's whole again. And they walk away. The religious leaders, they walk away and plan to kill him. That is, like, they walk away and plan to
Yeah.
kill him. That's their
Oh, man, yeah.
disposition. So I
Yeah.
just think, and I'm not trying to apply that to everything in life, but I think if my disposition is basically like, I'm looking for trouble everywhere, I'm looking
Yeah.
for problems. Are you doing that a little bit wrong? And I think that is natural to me. I think it's
Yeah.
natural to a lot of people who are thoughtful, or like, I've had to wrestle with, like, is this sinful? Is this
Right?
not? And I'm trying to think through my worldview, and I'm trying to not just
Mhm.
let everything come to me. So then I think the overcorrection on that side from discernment is this disposition of criticism, this disposition of accusation. And I think
Mhm.
of it as, it's really important to have a I mean, Andy Crouch has this thing about relationships to culture, and he talks about postures and gestures. And some things might be a good posture and not, or a good gesture and not a good posture. And that's how I think about criticism. Like, I think, if obviously Paul does it, he says, I wish that you'd be accursed and cut off, which is a really awesome double entendre with the group he's talking to about the
Mhm.
circumcision. He's like, he's very heavily hitting them with
Mhm.
some very tough language. And so does Jesus, the brood
Mhm.
of vipers and this kind of stuff. So that is true. Like, you need to be firm in the truth at times, for sure. But if that's all my life is about, then
Mhm.
that's, so it's a good gesture. And I think it's a crummy
Mhm.
posture to just be a
Yeah.
Yeah.
critic all the time. And the posture I want to have is, I want to be a creator or a curator. I want to share. I want to give. I want to
Yeah.
make things. I want to get in the arena and fight, and
Mhm.
try to do something about, because it's so simple just to say. I mean, we've gotten some feedback, honestly, about the video game, and it's, we're doing a video game and we're doing a book together, and it's a different kind of video game. It's radically hospitable to kids. It doesn't have this sort of endless addiction cycle. Pay to have ads to, to level up. It doesn't have, like, chat features. We made it with so much intention, going against the way you make money. to try to make something really hospitable to kids. So we're like fighting in this space. And I understand people say, oh, we don't do video games. I understand that. I respect that. We don't do it that much in our home either. There are lots of kids who that could be the only gateway for them.
Mhm.
So we've had some
Absolutely.
feedback about like, well, it's sort of like poking, like, why would you do this? You're getting our kids. And I just like think like we're trying to make something. We're trying
Yeah.
to do something. We're in
Trying to do
the
something good.
fight.
Yes,
Yeah.
So I just like
absolutely.
it's easy to sit on the sidelines and say, oh, you should have thrown the ball. You should have
Yeah.
taken that strike instead of trying to swing, like, while you're eating your popcorn. And, it just like, get in the game, or, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard in the game, and you're going to make
Yes,
these
it is.
mistakes. And if everybody's disposition is just always like, we're the discernment people, we're the truth checkers, we'll make sure everything's right and tidy.
Yeah.
Like, it's not always going to be perfect. Even the Lord was like, they're not against us, they're for us. And like,
Yeah.
these people are weird doing stuff. Oh, even Paul said, oh, I'm
Yeah,
rejoiced
for
that
sure.
they're preaching, even though it's like they're doing it for selfish gain. Like, there's a
Yeah.
little bit of and sometimes he's like, send them to hell. And I get that.
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
line. But anyway, that's sort of my thought about, like, just I want to be someone who's curating good things.
Yeah.
And that's what you guys are doing so well. And I want to be someone who's creating good things. And so that's my heart. I don't, and I'm not saying that as like, you stupid people or critics.
No, yeah,
I hate you.
yeah.
That's my natural.
Yeah.
I need to fight that myself.
I fully understand like what you are saying, because often as a parent, I think about that. Am I just being nitpicky with my children and just pointing out every little thing? Or am I truly being, an advocate for them and pointing them towards Christ? Because so often, like you said, I can be the one who's kind of nitpicking, and it comes from a heart of like genuinely like wanting them to do right. But is it truly helpful for them to constantly feel this pecking and just this?
Yeah. Are you smothering them? Is
Yeah.
it suffocating and all these things? Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing all of that.
Yeah, and I don't take anything that you just said as judgy or boo. You are actually being an advocate for those people
Mhm.
and for their children, and it's just such a great reminder, because we absolutely like I mean it that whole everything you just said speaks so much to me, because I can be an intense person, and I'm cut out of a very driven cloth, and I'm not using that as an excuse.
Mhm.
It's just an observation that of, an introspective look into my life. And I have to work at not being that dad that, critiques each at bat and,
Mhm.
does, you shouldn't have said that or whatever. And it's
Mhm.
like, like I said, I know that can be suffocating, and we truly are our children's advocates and need to be. And that, like I said, it's just a great reminder.
Yeah.
Yep. And I know that, Jesus is our intercessor, so we
Mhm.
can always use our Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ as an example, the perfect example of really how we should be as spouses as well. It's not just a parenting thing. I need to be your advocate.
Mhm.
And we all need to work together. Obviously iron sharpens iron, and we can improve, and
Mm.
it's not, like you said earlier, it's not that we don't try to improve and that we don't be critical at times in the right way and at the right times. But
Mhm.
if you're only that to your children and to your spouse and to those around you, you get on the crazy cycle pretty fast rather than be
Yeah.
on the energizing
Yeah.
cycle.
It's just, Proverbs talks a lot about not having a critical spirit. And that's
Mm.
essentially what you're becoming when you're just constantly nitpicking. And
Mhm.
it's get that log out of your own eye before you
Mm.
look at the speck in your brother's.
Well,
Mhm.
you have all these gifts, James. I just think about your capacity to sort of, both of you guys, to strive for excellence. So that means you're going to have high standards, and that high
Sure,
standards
sure.
are a gift. And so I feel the same way. Like, I'm going in the house, and I don't notice the 10 or 15 great things. It's like, oh, my
Right.
son didn't take out the trash, and
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
the shoes are right here. And so it is so natural and so easy. And I'm the same way. It's just, and so
Yeah.
I don't think it, and I think it is the flip side of those strengths. We have these, you
Mhm.
might have a gentle, empathetic spirit that is very kind and thoughtful and maybe artistic and that kind of thing. On the flip side of
Mhm.
that, you might struggle with anxiety or like
Sure.
navel
Yeah.
gazing, that kind of thing. If you're a driven, strong,
Yeah.
excellent sort of get out there and type A kind of thing, then you're going to have the weaknesses on that side of it. And it's just like bearing with each other, and that God calls us, that we have these. That's why I love the church. I love the church that there's so many. This is why my message to so many artists. I hate that the artists feel alienated from the church and the church feels alienated from the arts. I just hate that so much, because I think we need each other so much. Like the church needs those weird, creative, gifted kind of people in that way. And those people desperately need the reality of the church. They need Christianity, they need 100%. Jesus, they need the scriptures. And so I'll say I need it. And the church needs me and needs to hear me. So it's just like we need each other with those different strengths and weaknesses. It's the body of Christ.
Yeah. Yes. I was literally thinking the body of Christ as you were talking. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, are we an arm or are we a leg?
Yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, you mentioned your Kickstarter, so we're going to give you a little bit of time to maybe kind of put a plug in for that, because I know you're coming out with a Helmer book, and I was telling a friend about it last night, and you're going to probably laugh at this. She said they're getting new chickens here soon, and their son wants to name one of their hens Helmer. She's like, you can't name a girl Helmer. And he is like adamant that he is naming this hen Helmer because that is his favorite character. So I know that everyone is very excited about this upcoming book. So if you could tell us just a little bit more, what is it? It's Helmer in the Dragon Tomb. Is that what the title of this book is?
Yeah. Yes, that's the new book. And Helmer he's a beloved character. He's sort of the old mentor, the old crusty mentor to our young hero in the Green Ember. And he becomes a really important character as the series goes on, and a really beloved character. And it's kind of the softening of his heart. He's kind of a replacement dad in a sense. He's like God is a father to the fatherless, and he's a little bit. There's a little bit of that going on. I think that happens in a lot of great stories. There's a lot of great stories are about fatherhood, and I don't know, I think that's really deep in the core sort of the universe for some reason. Can't figure out why, but
go figure.
Just do some research on that. But so he's that kind of a character, and he's a really beloved character, and he embodies a lot of like heroic sacrifice and that kind of thing. But people don't want to let him go, and he's so this is his origin story. So this is going back to when he was sort of the young person being mentored. He's a farmer, and he must become a fighter because of what happens, and that's what this story is about. It's what the book is about, and it's what the game is as well. And so people love Helmer, and he's the most popular character probably. And I've heard so many pets named after Helmer. We've had there's lots of Green Ember characters named for lots of chickens, lots of dogs, lots of
and
rabbits.
Any children named Helmer?
Yeah, not Helmer, but I know of two children that have been named after characters in the book. So
super cool.
That's so cool. Yeah. I will definitely put like a link in the show notes for your Kickstarter. So if people are interested in going and checking that out and supporting this new venture with the video game, I know I was looking at the video game and it looks like it is so well done. And I was showing it to our son and he's really excited about it. And I just love that it's ad free and that you're not trying to, get money out of kids to like level up and all of that. And I just thought this is just good, wholesome video gaming because I loved games as a kid. Like I played video games. But the video games nowadays are not like what they used to be. And I just felt like that was just good, wholesome, fun play as a kid. But anymore, like some of the games I see and I'm like, it's all about the money, So
they're basically slot machines now.
Yeah.
They really, I mean, it's big companies that have spent, and they spend, that's what we're up against. That's what's a little bit frustrating to hear. Some of the criticism is like, why are you doing, like, do you understand the sort of the stakes culturally? Like this is a cultural artifact that I mean, in many ways, Zach, our illustrator who works with us, he's an incredible guy, but he was saying like the way opera sort of brings up, you have to have a story and narrative, you have music, you have set design, costume, you have this orchestra here, you have like, it's a bunch of different disciplines together. Yeah. I mean, video games are a little bit, they're like that. There's narrative, there's music, there's incredible art. There's sort of this collision of different sort of artistic fields that God has given us. And you enter into the narrative in this really interesting way. So it's the way that they make the games now, and they spend billions of dollars literally like to market these games because they know they are like slot machines. So we have to, we're trying to sort of compete. We can't really compete with that. What we need is families, because that's who
Yep.
that's who we want to serve. And so we've just got to kind of go around that whole apparatus of
Yeah.
advertising, because we got to go straight to moms and dads.
Well,
Yeah.
you definitely have us as an advocate here
Yeah.
because, like I said, our family, I mean, we do video games sometimes. And when we saw that, I was like, this is definitely what I would love for my kids to play. So,
Yeah, and I love, instead of trying to, win the game or beat them, meaning the video game creators at their own game, you like broke the rules and you're like, no, I'm gonna go old school. And I think it's great.
It
yeah.
is. It's kind of I appreciate you saying that, because it does feel a little bit like an insurrection or like guerrilla
Yeah.
warfare, because we can't. I mean, they really do spend so. I mean, you probably see it on any kind of.
Mhm.
You just almost can't
Oh,
avoid
yeah.
the ads for these games, and they
Mhm.
employ the biggest celebrities. They have so much
Yeah.
invested in it, and we just can't. We can't do that, and we don't want to do that. So yeah, it means a lot to have people sort of understand that the heart that we've poured into these
Mhm.
books for 10 years, like a
Mhm.
radical, generous hospitality and love, and a commitment to serving families, to be
Mhm.
allies in imagination, that we're bringing all that energy and all that intentionality into this game.
Mhm.
And it's not something that we're just like, oh, just play this game all your life. No, that's nothing. We want
Right.
reading. We want it to be a gateway to reading, back and forth.
Mhm.
We want kids to go outside and play. We want
Yeah.
to, we're not trying to, we're seeing the children as human beings made in the image of God,
Mhm.
and how do we love and serve them? And
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
really appreciate you guys seeing that, understanding, and being advocates for us. It means the world
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind, not to sound silly, but like, could you explain exactly what so there's a book and a game, and kind of just assume that I know nothing about it. And maybe to those listeners out there that literally don't know anything about it, do you mind explaining that kind of interface a little bit?
Thank you. That's such a great question. I appreciate that, because I've been in it so deep that I kind of
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes don't
you're
go back
living
out.
it, right? Yeah.
It's a really cool, like sort of I don't know if anybody's ever done this before. It is literally we have a new novel, sort of a new novel featuring a character who's really popular, kind of a
Yeah.
really highly anticipated novel, and so that novel will be released, but that novel has a video gamization, so you can literally just play the story from that novel in this
Mm.
video game, and you can go back and forth, and you can sort of enter into it at the same time. So it's, whereas a movie would come out and then, oh, we'll make a video game, a few months later, or a year later or something, or even a big book property, we're
Yeah.
doing it at the same time. So I think of it as this sort of like really neat, hospitable sort of way to. Kids always play the green ember, so they always
Mhm.
go back in the
Yeah.
backyard and play with sticks and that kind of a
Yeah.
thing, and they'll draw and they'll create in that world. And we think of this as a new way to play the green ember, and
Mhm.
yeah, just like a book, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's probably 3 to 6 hours total time, and you can of course
Okay.
go
Mhm.
back, and just like you'd go back and read a book, you could go back and
Mhm.
play it again and again, and
Sure.
probably change the difficulty settings and that kind of thing. But it's got it is its own story. It's kind of maybe comparable to the old Mario game,
Yeah.
where you have
Yeah.
like there's a quest, and you're trying to, and it's not, you can't go
Save the
anywhere.
princess. Yeah.
So it's got that, yeah, it's a story game, a beginning, middle, and an end, and it's really tied to this. And people for a long time have wanted us to do like a movie or a TV show, and
Yeah.
we've had some opportunities with that. We're kind of waiting for the right
Okay.
timing, right partnerships on that. But this is a bit of a step that direction, kind
I
of
love
like
it. Yeah.
a little bit of an opportunity to sort of for the green ember to jump off the page in
Mhm.
an exciting way, and we're that's I really want it to work. It's, you
Mhm.
can imagine James, as an entrepreneur, like the finances are
Yeah.
different for a
Mhm.
game than they are for
Yeah.
for a book. So that's part of,
Right.
like, we're fighting. It's a different prospect, and I think
Yeah.
that's been a little bit hard for people to understand. So I appreciate you asking that clarifying
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
because
Well,
and that's
really
how we
to
tied
that.
them together in
Yeah.
the Kickstarter. They're tied together. Some people say, well, we just want the book. I understand that. We want them to be together, to
Yeah.
sort of like, so you can sort of experience this in this new way.
Where are you
Yeah.
at, like, in your Kickstarter funding? Are you tracking well as far as, like, getting it fully funded so far?
Yeah, I think there's always, you probably know this, if you're in business, there are kind of like two
Mhm.
stories.
Yeah.
And both of them are kind of true. There is a sense in which it's going really, really well. I mean, we're
Sure.
Mhm.
we're we're a few days in, and we're getting closer to reaching our goal. We're over halfway to our
Mhm.
goal. the goal is an initial goal, though. There's that's a public goal, and
Milestone.
it means something.
Yeah.
We're trying to reach 200,000, and that would be good if we got there. We really need to get there for the project's sake.
Right.
But we're way more ambitious than that, and want to really. And it's just you got to deal with the reality of it's a tough. I think it's tough for people. This is why this is so helpful to talk about it, because I think it is sometimes hard for people to. We do understand a book. I actually think if we just offered the book, we'd be sort of pretty far ahead of where we are now.
Right.
The game complicates it. It makes people think, I got to think through this. What does that mean? And how do I play it and stuff? So it is challenging in a way, but I would just say we're really ambitious, and we want to because we're so committed to these kids and want this to be a big way. I mean, the game won't work if we don't like crank it up and we don't do well with it. We won't be able to keep doing it. So we're fighting pretty hard for it. I mean, that's part of the reason why we tied it to this really popular character and release. So it's a battle, but we're up for it.
Yeah, but it's a battle worth fighting, and I really appreciate your transparency with this, because like nothing happens for free, right? And I love capitalism, and I like to, when people are willing to talk about it, I think it's healthy. I think it's helpful, because I don't know, like there's just so many different sides to, like we talked about earlier. I mean, you're an author, but that's just one, unfortunately, maybe even a small part at times of your business. And the business side, I mean, without feeding your family and making sure those boxes are checked, there is no green Ember, there is no SD Smith and things like that. So I think it's great. And I hope you 10X it and think big and do your thing and, exceed all those aspirations, because I mean, like we said throughout this podcast, I mean, the world needs this story, and the world needs, people that are advocates for the gospel, for children, for just, a healthy, successsul life. And so I think it's awesome. So you have a big fan here.
Thank you, James. That means the world to me. Honestly, that's like, we do a lot of interviews and stuff, and that's not normally a component that comes out, but I totally really, it's part of it, is that you think you're going to get a cool game that's really fun, that's really hospitable, that doesn't have a bunch of ads, that doesn't not like a casino, like that is it's not. I will agree with you. It's not free to do that. It's not free in time or energy or money or anything. So it's a big,
the lack
big
of
challenge.
ads. The lack of ads it comes at a cost to the end user and to you. I mean, you're the one taking the risk on this. So like I said, I think it's awesome.
And even you having to volunteer your time for this podcast just so that you can have an opportunity to talk about it and stuff too. Like there's so many factors that go into promoting this. And,
well, he's getting 3 million sales as part of the shop.
That's going to help a lot. I mean, that won't do it all, but that'll go a long way. No, this is what I need to do, is to be able to explain. And thank you so much for that clarifying question and for being able to for understanding and for helping, because this is what we need to do, is we need to help sort of the audience to understand and just to reach them. I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, I want to get behind, I want to do media in this new, because it's so easy to complain about, media is so bad or whatever, but we're trying, we're doing something. And there's a lot of people that are just like, I'm on board with that, but it's just hard to reach them, because you got to pay $1 trillion to just get their attention now. It's so hard. So it just helps so much. You guys have been such great allies, and I'm so grateful for that.
Well, awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we really appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this. So could you definitely let our listeners know where they can connect with you? Like, what are your social media, your website? How can they connect?
I think it's all at sdsmith.com. So just SD, D for Dale, sdsmith.com is pretty, if you want to go to Kickstarter and type in the Green Ember, I think you could find our new project. That's probably the most pressing thing, but I think you can find everything at sdsmith.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this time. I guess we'll wrap it up because we're kind of getting a little long here. So until next time, we want to encourage you to seek God, love your spouse, hug your kids, and stay devoted. Thank you for tuning in to this Devoted Life podcast with James and Shanda. We appreciate your support in sharing biblical, uplifting truths with the world. If you found value in this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us to improve the show, and we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how to live a life devoted to God and family, head over to thisdevotedlife.com. You can also follow me, Shanda, on Instagram at devoted_motherhood. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time on This Devoted Life podcast.